Okay, I'm back. So here we have the part 2 of the Master Race Gundam Vitrue review. So on part 1 we looked at the Gundam Vitrue itself, and part 2 we will be looking at the Gundam Nadleeh itself, and on part 3, as I mentioned before, we will be looking on how you apply the armor to the Gundam Nadleeh to become Vitrue. So that's that. So once you have access to Nadleeh itself, you now have an extra access to this weapon where you can flip down the handle right over here, and then you can use this as a handheld weapon for Gundam Nadleeh. So yeah, I believe for the HD version it was you still had this function for the HD version, but it was almost impossible to do that on the Vitrue. So I'm going to assume it's kind of the same case. So hopefully for the Nadleeh it will be much more easier to do so. So once again, you can slap on. So for the hand, you don't use the trigger finger hand. You use the multi-purpose hand on this one, the same one that you would use to hold the beam sabers right over here, or GN sabers, whatever you prefer that. So yeah, I'll be showing you guys a demonstration later. Same goes for the beam saber. Now, as I mentioned, you are able to use these on the Gundam Vitrue. Just for me, for the sake of the review, I'm just going to show you guys on the Nadleeh. And once again, you now also can have much more easier time applying these to the Gundam Nadleeh. Once again, if you were to use it on Vitrue, then you will have to get rid of this part that connects to the arm, because while on Gundam Vitrue, the armor is actually covering up those extra ports on the arms, so which is why you cannot really use this properly unless you take this off or put this on the side or something like that. So once again, this is also for the beam rifle or GN rifle, and same goes for the shield. Once again, the only connecting point is that extra hole there onto the arm. So yeah, you need that hole to use the shield. Alright, so since the Gundam Vitrue was hindered by all the armor in terms of articulation, let's look at the articulation one more time. Now, first of all, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are wondering what are these fiber cables or hair strands are made of. Once again, they're kind of the same plastic kind of material, so they are easy to break. Now, once again, as I mentioned, I do not own the old 1-100 scale version, the no grade version. The 1-100 scale no grade version would made these out of rubber, which made it extremely hard to reapply because they will be moving all over the place. So in order to avoid that, I think they decided to go with a much more sturdier plastic. So, and it does work. However, for this review, I'm going to take these off because the head just, as you can see, it just kind of collides with all sorts of places. These hair strands are covering the back section, so they're kind of locking the head into place. So it's going to be very hard for me to show you guys the articulation, and also it kind of blocks the view. So once again, I'll be right back with these parts off. They are very easy to take off, but the only one you can just pretty much pull them off like this for the front ones. Come on. So the front ones, you can pretty much pull them off like this. But there's another set that's on the neck here. You can also pull that out, but this one you need to take off this gray part, and then you have to clip it off. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here we have all those fiber cables off, and I absolutely love this look. Now, I was never a big fan of these parts or these fiber cable hairish parts. I've never been a fan of where mechas would have these hairs, so I'm not a big fan of the Genesis Galgaigar, just for your reference. So once again, these parts are not rubber, so I would say still be careful. If you bend them, obviously it will either bend or break. So yeah, these parts, they do kind of limit the articulation on certain areas. So so each of these ones, the ones that goes onto the face, like this one, this is a whole single piece, and then there's these ones that goes inside the neck. Yeah, it may sound a little bit odd, but yeah, these actually go inside the neck. Once again, this is a single piece. So but the one that goes onto the back of the head, this one is actually composed of 3 pieces, as I mentioned before. So there's actually 3 pieces like that in a layer. I'm not sure if that was really necessary, but I guess they wanted to, I don't know, show the richness of this fiber cable. So yeah. Anyway, so now let's get on to the articulation here. Once again, I really love this look. Now, as much as I love simple designs, I'm not a big fan of the Gundam Dynamics for some reason, but I do love this design. So that's just me, but let's see what we got here. Which is why I'm still hoping that we would get a Master Grade O Gundam someday. So the head. Now, with all that stuff off, it definitely looks much more simple and clean. Obviously, inside the head here is one of those, one of those stickers I mentioned before that's written Nadleeh or Virtue. Now, as I mentioned, you have to choose, but once again, the words, you can barely see the words, so you don't need to choose. You don't need to have a hard time choosing them. So the head now, with everything off and gone, so you can go down that much and then up that much. Up was now not much of a good option, but still 360. Once again, I would say if you force it, you are able to go so, but once again, the head, it's not really meant to go 360. I mean, you have to rotate it in a very specific angle in order to avoid those antennas on the side. Of course, you can slightly move them and go down and then move it a little bit more better, but once again, you get the idea. So yeah, once again, there's just a small piece that's just colliding the way. Alright, now let's get the main body. Once again, very clean and basic looking body. You can flip down the cockpit as mentioned before. Now, once again, without these parts coming out, you do have a slight movement here, but once you have everything out, come on. Now, I would be careful when you're doing this because as you can see, there's a part that's trying to, divide into two pieces. So yeah. No, I'm not sure this is a good example, but once again, once you have everything out here, I wish those parts would stop coming out. So here is the extended part. You can move much more. You can move the shoulders much more like that. So that's actually a very good thing. And then now there's nothing on the back, 360 twist on the entire arm is possible. Going to the side is much more possible as well. You can go a little bit more higher than 90 degrees. So yeah, that's actually a very good improvement. I believe you are you can slightly go more if you move the shoulders upwards as well. And then you can also move this part entirely up and down. So this does also contribute to how far you can go. So definitely liking that. Let me just push it back in because that part is trying to pop out again. Alright, and now the body. Now the body, once again, 360 is not going to be too possible because of the crotch area and the main body area. Just design-wise, they're just colliding with each other. So, I don't know, maybe if you sand this part a little bit often, maybe you can go 360. But once again, I'm not really sure if a mobile suit needs to go 360 on the top. I always ask myself that. And then you do have a side-to-side movement like that. And I believe, yeah, you are able to also see one of those those clear rubber parts on here. There's one over there, and then obviously there's one on the sides. So there are other easier to see ones. All right, so we've seen that. Now the arms, once again, the same deal. You can go. I already showed you guys going to the side. 360 twist is still possible, and then once again we have one of those cables right over here. And then bending wise, we get a much more better bend compared to on the Virtue because the armor is actually locking up the place, which is why it hinders the articulation. But in this case, no need to worry about that. And then let's get the legs. Now with all the armor gone, we can go forward 90 degrees very well, and then backwards not also very well because there's no armor. And then side swivel is still the same, and then bending point, we get a very nice bend going on here. Of course, there's this part that actually moves around. So currently it was on top, so this is as far as it goes. But if I put this a little bit downwards, you can go a little bit. You can go much more. So that's a very good, sign. So because I believe when you're applying the armor, this has to be on the top section for some reason. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if not in terms of the model kit. I'm not sure if in terms of the Gundam engineering part, like in the anime. I'm not sure if there's a main reason for that. And then here, let's get the back here. Very slim and basic looking design. And here is the part where I was talking about of the solar furnace core. You can take this part out, and then it will reveal the part here where Tierra actually, ejected from the unit, and here. So here is your option. So you can put that in the chest and then put it here and then close it up. Or you can also get one of those green LEDs, put it inside here, connect it to here, and then lock it into place. It's really up to your choice. Now, I didn't have a extra green LED, and I don't want to deal with those small batteries time to time, so I did not use this part. So it's really up to your preferences. So yeah, of course, it's not really mandatory to have these. You can always just close it up. I believe you are able to close it up like this, and yeah, nothing would be different. So really up to you. Of course, the inside may seem a little bit more empty, but oh well. All right, and now the feet. Now the feet, once again, the same case. There's no ball joints, so you have multiple joints here. You can go. You get a very nice pivot point here, and then you get a nice forward and backward movement like that. it's much more easier to see when there's no armor here. Now, once again, the problem is the feet. Now, you can see there's these flat surfaces, but I think there's a slight difference. There's a very slight difference, and there's this middle bending point. And every time I try to put the feet on the ground, let me just actually, let me, the camera, there we go. Every time I put the feet on the ground with both sides flat, now this happens. Like you can see, this front part is going to move off forward, so it's either going to be the back section or only the front section that gets to the surface, and which this also caused a little bit of a balance issue. So, and because after you apply the armor to the Gundam onto that leg to become Virtue, this weird effect or situation is going on at the same time. So there is a slight weird balance issue, if you ask me. But other than that, I am very satisfied with this version. I mean, heck, if they actually just released the Gundam Nadleeh on its own, I would actually go buy it, because I actually really like this format. Of course, I wouldn't be using those cables, but yeah, I really love this basic look. Alright, so we've seen the basics of the Gundam Nadleeh, so I'll be right back with some demonstrations of its equipment. So, because I'm pretty sure that's what everybody's wondering. And also, without the armor, even with the armor, there is a way to go to the side for the leg. So yeah, but once again, the Gundam Virtue being so fat in various areas, yeah, going to the side while being Virtue is not much of a I don't think much people are going to do that. But yeah, in Gundam Virtue form, you are able to do a little bit of a split. So that is a good news. So once again, I'll be right back with the demonstration of the weapons. Okay, I'm back. So here is the first set of weapons. Here we have the GN rifle and the shield. Once again, the shield connects to the whole of the arm. Very, very simple. Let me just show you guys once more. Come on. So obviously there's a peg on the shield that connects to this hole. Once you have it on, it's a very stable connection, so you don't need to worry about it falling off or popping off easily. So once you have it in there, it's a pretty stable connection. As long as you don't slap it off, it should be good. So the same goes for the rifle. So once you have the trigger finger hand and then you connect the peg onto the arm, it should be good to go. As long as you have both connections there, the rifle shouldn't be falling off. And currently, as you can see, I reconnected those fiber wires onto the head once again. So it is much more easier to do the pose and then slap on these parts once more, because once again, some parts they will kind of get in the way, especially with the neck. So just be aware of what you're trying to do, and you should be able to pull it off. And once again, the good thing about this specific rifle is that you can also connect this beam effect part onto the end tip, which allows it to become either a firing effect, or it's actually just a mixture between, it's a rifle, it's a GN rifle, but also it's emitting a beam effect part right over here. So yeah, definitely looking cool. Alright, so that's the first set of weapons. I'll be right back with the beam sabers and the cannons. Okay, so here we have the GN Sabers. Nothing too special. They're just pretty much your standard beam saber. So as long as you have the GN Saber hilts connected to the fingers, you should be good to go. There's no issues here. And yeah, for those who are wondering, the effect parts for here are the flat ones, not the round ones, but the flat ones. So I think that's a staple thing for the 00 series kit, but I do get some questions time to time asking what type of the beam saber effect parts is, because obviously for some people who want to do customs, I assume those are kind of more important details. Alright, so we've seen that, and it's time for the final weapons, which is for these cannons, to finally show how they're easy to connect. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So here we have the cannons onto the hand. So connecting those parts, they're not the super easiest part, but they're at least they're manageable. Let's just put it that way. So it was my first time doing it as well, although it went pretty much more easier than I expected. So the main reason why Virtue is almost impossible is because the extra armor, basically it will give us, the armor would hinder this part, so it would give much less space for the hands to go in here. So obviously doing with the Virtue is pretty much impossible, but with the Nadleeh, because of these skinny arms, it is much more manageable to connect it here. Now with the right pose, they shouldn't be falling off that easily, so, and the joints on the arms are pretty stable, so I don't think you should be worrying about that. And yeah, I actually really like how this turned out to be. Anyway, that was pretty much it for the Gundam Nadleeh for part 2. So, since we've seen the rest of Gundam Nadleeh, now on part 3, we will be looking at how you apply the armor to the Gundam Nadleeh to become Vitrue. Now, of course, there are going to be some parts that I'm going to have to skip or pre-apply, such as since there are 2 legs and 2 arms, I'm going to apply 1 arm and leg in advance so that I can save some time and show you guys how you're supposed to do it as well. So once again, thank you for watching for part 2. I'll be right back with part 3.